Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia. That, of course, is Mike Tagliere and the Kyle Yates. And it's you, and we're talking all things football today. We've got a great show for you. As always, today's special is about 5 late-round must-haves. All 3 of us have 5, so if you add them up, I'm pretty sure that's 15, and there you go. I just graduated a little math. Yates is still counting on his fingers, and that's why you watch us over on YouTube. And, of course, you're not just watching for Kyle counting on his fingers, but you're also watching for the outfits, you know, the classic black, never goes out of style tags. I just want to know, how was filming Ocean's 14? Have you finally gotten off the set, and what was it like in real life to hang out with George Clooney?
Wait. You think this happened by accident? No. We're doing players that are being stolen outside of top 100 ADP. I am here as a thief. So, yes, I will be stealing players today.
Wow, you really turned that around. Well done. I was not expecting that. Yates, I think that was pretty impressive, right? I mean, obviously a lie. It's completely a lie.
1,000%. He completely made that up. But it's actually pretty impressive that he came up with it that quickly.
I just think it's interesting because it feels like he's open for business today. Like, he's got the blank hat. It looks like the shirt's blank. It feels like
he's just ready for a billboard advertisement.
Yeah. Put your
for
ad
sale here.
For tags. Yeah, pretty much. That's what it feels like today. Oh my goodness. But we are going to break down those guys. So these are guys that are going in ADP post 120. We're going to use half-point PPR just to kind of set the stage. And we've each given you 5 guys that we keep drafting or targeting in our drafts that have been going on that we think are really good values, that we think have a place. And most of these guys, the place is going to be on the bench. But still, you want guys on your bench who can be useful to you, whether it's in the beginning of the season, as the season progresses, they develop, or also potential trade chips too, because you can never have enough talent on your roster, you can never have enough leverage either. So we're going to go through those lists 5 through 1. We're also going to talk about some of the big news going on in fantasy football as well, because there's a lot of stuff going on this weekend. We'll touch on that too. Before we do, I want to remind everybody, go to FantasyPros.com/contest. You can get that autographed CMC jersey thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction. All you got to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel. You get the 3 extra entries. And then you go over to FantasyPros.com/contest. There's a whole form to fill out. You just have to do a review of the show. And, of course, a 5-star one. I mean, come on. If you're going to do a review, make it a good one. You screenshot that over at Apple Podcasts or CastBox. You make that review, take that screenshot, upload it to FantasyPros.com/contest. And just like that, you're entered to win that CMC jersey. The contest ends at the end of the month. There's only a few days left if you want to get that jersey. And also, once you are in for the next giveaway and the next giveaway. So you only got to do it one time. One time, free stuff could be yours. So once again, go to FantasyPros.com/contest. Get that CMC jersey thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction. And like I said, don't forget, we've got something really cool tomorrow on Tuesday. We're doing a live stream mock draft. It's going to be the whole crew. Me, Dan Harris, Tags, and of course, Kyle Yates, as long as Tags doesn't get, arrested for robbing a bank. All of us are going to be there doing a fun mock, but you can only know when it's going on and when everything is starting if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and make sure you click that bell for the notifications. We are scheduled to go at 3 p.m. Eastern, but it's not just the live streams, it's not just the podcast. Everything that we've got going on here at Fantasy Pros is on the YouTube channel, plus all the other great content. Kyle's Dynasty show is on there. You've also got some fantastic videos that the ladies are putting out there as well for you, getting you ready for the season. So please go over and subscribe to Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/fantasypros. All right, so now that we have talked about what the show's going to be and gotten the housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about Michael Thomas. Things are getting a little complicated right now in terms of what's going on, when he's going to be back. Of course, I had to have a sarcastic tweet that Michael Thomas is going to be back sometime between 4 weeks and 73 weeks. I think that's the window. I'm not exactly sure. I've heard 0 to 2,000. I've also heard 2 to 4. So it's crazy. So, Yates, I want to start with you with this one. We got the Michael Thomas news. We all started knocking him down in our rankings, right? And I think all of us deep down kind of realized he already had questions going in. He was already maybe a fringe wide receiver 1, high end 2 kind of going into this season with the change of quarterback and the uncertainty at quarterback. Now with this latest bit of news, what does this do to Michael Thomas and to the rest of the fantasy shares, if you will, of the Saints as a whole?
Well, I'm so glad that you put that into context, because it's not like we're talking about Michael Thomas the way that we were heading into the 2020 season, right? This is not the consensus wide receiver 1. This was a guy who had a ton of questions surrounding him outside of the injury. So now when we look at Michael Thomas and we have a wide range, like you mentioned, wide range of expected outcomes for when he's going to see the field again, then it goes, okay, if we buy into him, if we draft him this year, we have to wait for who knows how long. And then additionally, are we going to get a guaranteed wide receiver 1 when he does come back? Now, I think he's going to be a very fantasy relevant option when he comes back, but to the point where it's a guarantee, that's just enough for me to say there are other options that I know that I'm going to have availability on, that I can play them until, before he comes back in week 7, week 8, maybe even week 9. There's a ton of variables here with Michael Thomas, to the point where I'm just saying I'll let someone else draft him. I really don't want to take that gamble here with Michael Thomas, because it's not like we're getting the guaranteed consensus wide receiver 1 when he does come back onto the field.
Tags, I can feel a lot of thoughts going through your head on this and a lot of emotions, a lot of conflict, but tell me, every player has a price, right? It's kind of like $1 Million Man, old school WWF days. I feel like there's a price where all of us go, okay, Michael Thomas is intriguing to me with the upside, but what's that price for you? And has the price of Tre'Quan Smith risen for you at all? Because that seems to be an automatic reaction the fantasy football community's been having this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't want to like overreact to the news once it first came out, because there were a lot of guys, including Dan, that were basically saying, I'm not drafting this guy, I'm not going to touch him. And I said, I think that's a little premature, because we don't know the timeline. People can speculate, we heard it's a 4-month injury. We don't know when in June that surgery took place. We don't know anything about it. So I wanted to be basically to sit back and say, okay, we know he's going to miss a couple weeks at minimum, up to maybe 6, and now people are suggesting 10 weeks for whatever reason. I remember when people were drafting Kareem Hunt in the 9th or 10th round, when he was not coming back. We knew for a fact he was not coming back into the lineup until I think it was week 10. So it was more like, I didn't really understand that, holding on to him. But Michael Thomas, I had him as a top 10 wide receiver going before this happened. And yes, there were question marks, but there were also hypothetical situations where this man could have saw 200 targets this year. So when he comes back in the lineup, if he's 100%, there's a lot of ifs now, right? Where we add in this injury, where last year he tried to come back from the injury. Obviously, that didn't play out very well. Dr. Chow, I've been following on Twitter. We're going to have him on again in season, where he's going to talk about these injuries. And he came out and said, when I was the lead team physician for the Chargers, I would have set a timeline and said, hey, when this player is injured, we're going to set a timetable. And he's like, with this particular injury, I probably would have said back in March, we have to know by then whether or not you need surgery. So he's really curious to find out why they waited until June. Some people suggest to do it on the team's time, which is never a good thing for Michael Thomas. This Saints team is not going to be as competitive as they were before. So again, if this team gets off to a rough start, we could see them say, hey, we're not going to rush Michael Thomas back. We know we want him with the team for a long time. So I am exercising caution a bit, but if you get him in the double-digit rounds as one of your bench receivers, and I will emphasize this, he's fully expected to start the year on the PUP list. So if you have IR spots in your league, Michael Thomas is worth a lot more in those leagues than he is in leagues where you have for him to account a bench spot. So those are things to consider. I moved him down into the 30s right now. If we hear more in saying he's for sure going to miss at least 6 weeks, I'm going to move him outside the top 40 wide receivers.
It's an excellent point, my friend. Either of you guys, any bump up of significance for Trautman, for Tre'Quan, for... people will talk about Kamara. I was like, how much further can we move Kamara up? That's the one thing to me is Latavius Murray seems to be a piece now that becomes maybe a little bit more intriguing. Maybe if Alvin Kamara really is, they start to get really creative with him, maybe there's a little bit more in terms of the late Latavius Murray shares. You guys buy into that at all?
Well, to be fair, I mean, Alvin Kamara can't move up a whole lot, you're right. But at the same time, it gives you some more comfort in drafting him there, because you were worried.
Right.
Everybody was worried about Drew Brees leaving. There were some question marks. So it gives you a little bit more peace of mind with him. Tre'Quan Smith moves up. I don't even want to break Dan's ranking of him, because I can't do it. I can't get there with him. If you get him as your wide receiver 5, wide receiver 4, I have some other targets I'd rather have at 4. But I think this, if anything, Adam Trautman was already high on mine and Yates' board. I moved him up a couple spots. But this, what happened here, I think this lends to the fact that we're going to see Taysom Hill start the season for the Saints, because Sean Payton has always adapted his offense to what he has in front of him. He knows his pass catchers aren't the strength. He's essentially I anticipate him turning this offense into somewhat of the Ravens offense, where they're going to be a very, very run-heavy offense, throw the ball maybe 450, 500 times. And so this is Taysom Hill. If you're playing in super flex leagues, he just gains some more value from this.
Yeah, to me, Latavius Murray was the guy that, besides Thomas, that I actually adjusted for the most, because that was my immediate reaction. Same thing that Tags was saying, which is, well, it seems like it's going to be more of a run-heavy attack and a little bit of change of identity of what the Saints used to be.
Man, I don't know. I don't know what to think about this with Taysom Hill specifically and Jameis Winston, because you say, okay, well, with Jameis, he's more of that prototypical passer. He can make it work with other receivers. And there's still talented receiving options here. There's still Alvin Kamara. There's still Tre'Quan Smith, who has been really, really good. He's just not lined up with the skill set of Drew Brees towards the end of his career. Adam Trautman is expected to take a massive leap forward. So I think there are still some playmakers here where I think you can lean back on Jameis. The other side of Tags' argument is that you can lean back on Jameis and you know that it's still going to work. You can still be a predominantly run-heavy team. You can still run the ball with Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray. You can still get Taysom Hill onto the field as a mobile quarterback in some gadget plays here or there, right, in that role. But what happens if Taysom Hill is the quarterback and you don't have the wide receivers around him to be able to help him sustain that passing volume? Because at that point, then you become one-dimensional. Because then at that point, if you can't throw the ball, if you can't move the ball through the air, then you become one-dimensional. You become more easier to stop. So I just think there's another side of it here where I don't think it's completely guaranteed that this means Taysom Hill is going to be the starting quarterback. I do think Latavius Murray gets a bump up. Tre'Quan Smith is at wide receiver 36 for me on the season now because of the target totals that he's going to be walking into, and then Trautman here at tight end 13. So I think there are a ton of guys here in this range of that tight end position that I can feel really comfortable snagging. Trautman's got an excellent chance of breaking out this season.
Real quick, 2 notes from the Texans too. Deshaun Watson reports to camp. They still want to trade him. He still wants to be traded. It seems like that's all going forward, which is interesting, of course. And one of your favorites, guys, Anthony Miller, gets dealt to the Texans. Look at that. Jailbreak. What do you take from the Deshaun Watson stuff? Yates, let's start with you on this one. Obviously, him going to camp is not surprising because he wants to try to get money and try to get out of there and all of those things, but I think it's unrealistic to think that the league isn't going to put some kind of, hold on him, whether it be 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, the commissioner's exempt list. But it is intriguing that he did report on time at the very least. What are your thoughts on this Watson stuff going on?
Yeah, so with the new structure of the CBA, this is, and I think it was Adam Schefter who phrased it this way, that it's a hold in versus a hold out, right? In previous years with the Le'Veon Bell, that was famous for it, right? The holdout where you weren't accruing significant fines if you didn't show up to training camp, and that was how you made your statement. With Deshaun Watson, he's going to miss, I think it was $50,000 per day. And so for him, he's already made it clear that he wants to be traded. That trade request was back in, March, February? So it's like this is for him holding in. Why would you take a hit of $50,000 per day? Just show up, do what you need to, and then you'll head out and you're still going to get traded. And now we're starting to see some significant movement here that Deshaun Watson could potentially be traded here as early as this week, which is crazy to think about. It does look like he's avoided the commissioner's exempt list for now, and it sounds like all the civil trials and stuff like that, that's going to be pushed back a year. It doesn't sound like this is going to be resolved here pretty quickly. So if an NFL team does trade for someone like Deshaun Watson, they're going to have done their homework behind the scenes to know what is fully going on behind the scenes with this off-the-field stuff. But as far as on the field, what you're going to get with Deshaun Watson, man, is an absolute steal. Like if you can I got him in the 13th round of Scott Fishbowl because it was just like, all right, I'm going to take the shot here because who knows? Maybe he does play. Maybe he does avoid the commissioner's exempt list. I'm still betting that there's going to be a suspension. I'm still betting that there's going to be something, but we're starting to see some movement here now with Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans.
Tags over under 10 games played this year for Deshaun Watson in 2021.
I think that's a good line. Honestly, I'd say a push maybe. I
thought long and hard before I asked.
But if he does, I think he's got to play for the Texans. And I know that people are talking about this. It's a popular thing to say, and I'll do that. If you're an NFL franchise, you're stupid if you're trading for Deshaun Watson right now. I don't even care if I said someone do whatever you want to do with it, but I'm tired of people ignoring the fact that there's so much risk tied to this. They want 3 first-round picks and another 2 proven players in return for him. This is the Houston Texans telling Deshaun Watson, here's a piece of humble pie. No team is going to be willing to give that to us for you because you're under this situation that you've put yourself in. There is almost 24 reports about women being harassed by him. And it's not like one popped up and then it's like, oh, another one kind of. This is 22 women that came forward and said that he did something like this. I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind that he did do something like this. So this goes back to it's not kicking a woman, it's not punching them. It's still not good. This is negative PR. If you guys remember, Baltimore Ravens suspended Ray Rice for a portion, and then the video came out and they were like, well, we'll wait it out. And then they had their preseason game where he came out and the reaction was just deadly. And they were like, okay, we have to get rid of him. If you're doing this, you have no idea of the legal ramifications that Deshaun Watson's about to go through. You have no idea if he's going to end up on the commissioner's exempt list. Maybe he can't even play this year because they're saying, hey, the trial hasn't taken place. We can't let it tarnish the NFL's reputation. Whatever. I want this situation to play out. But again, when there's 22 women, you have to be. If it's my favorite team, if I'm a fan of the Eagles, if I'm a fan of whatever team that you are, I do not want to mortgage my future for a player that I have zero clue about his future in the NFL. I don't. So I think this is the Texans basically saying, no one's going to give us, but you want us to come forward and trade you? Okay, we'll see if we can get what we want for you. And if they can't, he's going to be forced to play with them for them because, again, no one's going to pay that price. And if they do, well, that's just terrible on a front office standpoint.
All right, we're going to transition now into getting our lists out here for our top 5 must-have late-round picks. But before we do, I want to tell you about a sponsor of today's show, and that's PristineAuction.com. They got all the cool NFL stuff, jerseys, helmets, all kinds of plaques, anything you can possibly name, whether it be sports cards or actual autographed balls and bats. They've got it over there, Pristine Auction. Everything there is authentic. It comes with the certification. There's things that are affordable. Or if you want to be a big spender and get some kind of big wow factor item, Pristine Auction is the place to do it. And guess what? It's quick and free and easy to register and free to bid. You only pay when you win. All you got to do is when you get to PristineAuction.com, go and put in that registration code field, FantasyPros. You get $5 on us. Again, it's free to register and a $5 credit just for signing up. Make sure you use that code FantasyPros, though. Again, that's PristineAuction.com, PRISTINE auction.com. Tags, let's start with you. Who is number 5 on your list when we're talking about late round steals, my friend? You are the thief.
Yeah, I'm going to start with Elijah Moore, the New York Jets. I've talked about him and the fact that, throughout the offseason, you're going to hear a bunch of glowing reports about every single player. But what we've been hearing about Elijah Moore is a steady drumbeat. Every single beat reporter, every reporter that walks into Jets camp said Elijah Moore is the best player on the football field. And he's developing chemistry with Zach Wilson immediately. And it's something that we saw. He's just a natural-born football player. Did I think that he had the athleticism that he showed at his pro day on film? No, I did not. But I said he was a natural football player that could be used in a variety of different ways. The Jets basically said, Jamison Crowder, take a pay cut or we're going to let you go. We have your replacement. They're going to find ways to get the ball into his hands. And again, I wouldn't be shocked if they used him in sort of, I don't want to say a Deebo Samuel sort of way, but utilizing him as almost like a third down back in some ways because they have a very depleted running back depth chart. They're going to find ways to get the ball in his hands. This defense, worst cornerback unit in the league, they are definitely going to be put in situations where they're going to be forced to throw the ball rather than run the ball, like maybe, Robert Salah would want to. But Elijah Moore is going to be one of those guys that's going to be manufactured touches, and those are always good players to have in fantasy football.
Great point there. His ability to kind of do more with the offense, with the running back core being a little bit questionable, I guess, in terms of talent and depth of what you're really going to get out of them. Yates, who is number 5 on your list for late round must-haves?
Really quick, I just did a YouTube video recorded a video for our YouTube channel on rookies to avoid. Elijah Moore was on my list. All right, so for
wait, hold on. I want a good rebuttal. Let's open this up for debate. Why is he not a good late round must-have for you?
For me, with Elijah Moore, I think he profiles as a very, very good slot receiver. And there are some people that think that he can play on the outside. I am not one of them. So when you're looking at this depth chart now, and for all the hype that Elijah Moore has gotten, Keelan Cole has gotten just as much here in this entire offseason and in training camp. So I think when you're looking at Jamison Crowder restructuring, his contract to stay on this team, that signals that they're going to use him. He's a veteran wideout. He's going to get the first crack here. And then he's going to be the starting slot receiver. Well, then you have Corey Davis, who's not giving up his role. Keelan Cole, most likely on the outside on the other spot. And then where does Denzel Mims? Denzel Mims is still on this depth chart, and he's been completely written off. So I think with Elijah Moore, I think he will carve out a role as the season progresses. And as we get towards the end of the year, we might be looking at Elijah Moore as one of these, returning value, right? But I think that for these players that are going as late as they are, those are the ones that I want to hit right away. And I want to be able to have them return value right away. Otherwise, I'm going to cut them and I'm going to move on to the next hot waiver wire ad. So with Elijah Moore, that's the difference here. If Jamison Crowder had been cut, then I would have been completely on board. But I just can't find the spot for him on this depth chart right now.
But you don't think there's a situation where Elijah Moore beats out Jamison Crowder for that job?
I think it's going to take Jamison Crowder being injured, which is absolutely possible. But I don't think that Elijah
Moore.
Moore.
Let him walk though. They gave him an ultimatum and said, "You take."
I don't think that they were. I think that they wanted a solid depth, wide receiver core here. And Jamison Crowder, for everything that he is, as far as like injury riddled, and we have a different view of him from fantasy. He's a very, very good slot receiver in the NFL. And you want those veteran receivers when you're bringing in a rookie quarterback who's as raw as Zach Wilson is. The New York Jets are playing a long game here, right? They're playing a long game here as far as their development. They can afford to allow Jamison Crowder to start this year, allow Zach Wilson to grow with him, who Jamison Crowder is not going to cut off routes. He's going to run the right routes. He's not going to get anything mixed up. He's going to make life easy on Zach Wilson. And then in year 2 is when we see Elijah Moore completely take over because Jamison Crowder is not going to be on this depth chart anymore.
All right, so Yates, give me your number 5 guy on your list.
Yeah, so I'm just going right down the list as far as overall. So these are not in any specific ranking, but number 5 for me is Tyler Higbee, the tight end for the Los Angeles Rams. He's currently at 121 overall and tight end 13 in our consensus ADP, with Cam Akers going down for this season, right, with a torn Achilles, which is absolutely terrible. You are going to lose some of those targets to the running backs, right? Darrell Henderson will see an uptick in targets, and he's a very, very capable and competent receiver. But then you've got guys like Xavier Jones, Jake Funk. These guys aren't going to step in and command targets right away. So as far as depth options, so now you got to kind of disperse the targets throughout the rest of this depth chart. And Tyler Higbee is the one, the running back and tight end position. They command a very similar spot on the field as far as the targets and what is being funneled their way. Tyler Higbee, when we look at Jared Goff and what he did with 20 passing touchdowns in 2020, Jared Goff was terrible. And I've been saying that for a couple years now. So now you go from Jared Goff, who threw 20 passing touchdowns with Sean McVay and Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, the ridiculous receiving core they just got. Now you go to Matthew Stafford, who can easily hit what? What's a very realistic possibility, guys, for Matthew Stafford from a passing touchdowns? 35? Can he hit 35 passing touchdowns this year?
32, 35, I'd say.
Right in there, right? So at that point, I mean, Robert Woods, then, we should be drafting as a top 5 receiver. Cooper Kupp, we should be right in that range because they're going to eat from a target perspective. But then if we have the touchdown totals go up, then goodness gracious, it's got to go somewhere else. And Tyler Higbee is now the biggest beneficiary of that, especially with his, when you look across the depth chart, there's no one else with significant size that can be targeted in the red zone. And Matthew Stafford has loved to target guys like TJ Hawkinson and Eric Ebron throughout their time in Detroit. So, man, I really, really like Tyler Higbee this year. After the Cam Akers injury, Tyler Higbee moved up to tight end 6 for me in my projections.
All right, number 5 for me is John Brown. That's right, Las Vegas Raiders, 152 overall, wide receiver, 59 in half-point PPR. And I'll tell you this, I'm not enthralled with Bryan Edwards. I wasn't last year. I think everybody was just kind of pivoting that way because they didn't know what else to do. Maybe Henry Ruggs will rebound and look better in year 2. Maybe the health will be there and the knowledge of the offense will be there and everything will come together. But what if it doesn't? And nobody, and I mean nobody, thought Nelson Aguilar was going to be useful last year. And John Brown's never a question of talent. It's always a matter of health. And that is always something to wonder about. But it's baked into the cost here, which is basically a free square. John Brown is going to be useful for a point of this season. I don't know how long it's going to be. And I've had enough, too. I've been one of those guys historically who's been a very tough critic of Derek Carr. But Derek Carr last year had a pretty good season, all things considered. And I think Derek Carr is starting to feel at least like, you know what, I'm just going to have a little confidence. I think that building is going to be live with people in there, too. It's going to be a very different, energetic place there, I think, for the Raiders. I think it's going to be very unique. And I think John Brown is a guy that's going to contribute. At wide receiver 59, I think he could do a lot worse in terms of talent and also with need in that offense. Let's go to Tags with his number 4. Late round must-have. Tags, who's number 4 on your list?
I'm all about getting players who could be the potential leading target getter on their teams in the double-digit rounds. That's always a fantastic way to approach drafts, just because you're looking for upside. I'm not looking for a guy that I could play during bye weeks. I can give a crap less about that. You're going to be able to find guys on the waiver wire you can do that with. But this guy, Rashad Bateman, the Ravens went out there and they acquired some pass catchers this offseason. They made it a point, and they said that they're going to throw the ball more this year. Now, do I think that they're going to drastically change it like the Bills did? No, but it's a similar situation, right, where the Bills went from a team that was considered, all right, Josh Allen's going to run the ball a lot. He's going to have value that way. The running backs, they're going to split it, so there may not be a great running back from there. But we never thought that Stephon Diggs can wind up with the targets and the receptions that he did while Cole Beasley was healthy, while John Brown was on the field. Gabriel Davis had a little breakout, but the team threw the ball a lot. I think probably 100 times more than most people were expecting that did projections. And it's possible that we see that with the Ravens. So if we go out there in week 1 and all of a sudden the Ravens throw the ball 35 times, and Rashad Bateman walks away with 6 to 8 targets in that game, he's going to be the number one waiver wire pickup that week because the kid is uber talented. He's someone that the first time I sat down and watched him, he reminded me a lot of Keenan Allen, a refined route runner. And route runners get open at every single level. It's whether or not they can pick up the playbook. And the Ravens really don't have a choice. They have to put him on the field. Marquise Brown is going to be more destined to the role that he was meant to play. Where Bateman can be that possession style receiver that they can move into the slot, they can play him on the perimeter wherever they want. So having him there, 171 overall in ADP right now, you're getting him in the 12th, 13th round, and you're going to find out immediately within the first 2 weeks you're going to know what you have. And by drafting players outside this range that we're talking about, these are players that are easy to let go. They're guys that you can say, hey, I don't have a whole lot invested, but if you draft someone in the 7th or 8th round hoping they're going to break out, you're almost tying yourself to them for at least 4 or 5 weeks because you need to find out if that's going to happen. Whereas these guys, it's like, hey, let's look for the guys that are going to get the most targets, and if you get them with Rashad Bateman, you're going to be walking away with a mad profit on drafting him at 171 overall.
I actually think, Tags, one should be a little patient with Bateman because I think that potential, or like you said, the need for the Ravens to really kind of balance this offense out a little bit, I think you give him a little bit of time. If it doesn't work week 1, week 2, I think you give him into October before you go cutting him personally because I'm like you, I do like the talent, and I think the need's there in that combination. Sometimes, typically you see that kind of win out. Number 4 on your list, Yates, of must-have late-round picks.
Guys, let's run it back. I'm going with this guy right here.
There you
can't
go.
see his jersey, but I'm going Jonnu here. What are we doing? Tight end 14 in ADP consensus behind Hunter Henry? Like what is going on?
I don't
here?
know,
This is
dude.
The guy.
I can't understand it. And I didn't put Jonnu on my list because I knew he was going to be on yours, so I picked somebody else. But I am exactly with you. And everyone keeps giving Yates. I want to defend Yates. Yates keeps getting a lot of crap. Like, oh, it's Jonnu Smith. Oh, Yates is going to love that roster. I'm going to love it too. Okay? I'm going to love every roster that's got Jonnu Smith on it because of all the reasons Yates is going to talk about right now.
Yeah, I mean, with Jonnu, it is just ridiculous how from what we saw with him last year. I mean, earlier this year, it's changed now, but earlier this year I put out a tweet that said Jonnu Smith had 8 total touchdowns or 9 total touchdowns last year because he had a rushing touchdown too. And he was just absolutely dominant. And then Evan Ingram had 1 receiving touchdown, and Evan Ingram was going ahead of him in ADP consensus earlier. That is now switched. And I was just like, what are we doing here? Like, what more can this guy do? Where Jonnu showed out an incredible red zone presence. He gets a $50 million contract here right away in free agency from the New England Patriots. And then we see Hunter Henry, and I think this is the reason. I think this is the reason why people are scared off of Jonnu Smith and why he is down here at tight end 14, is that Hunter Henry also signed here with the New England Patriots this offseason. Guys, Hunter Henry does not scare me whatsoever here. Hunter Henry is going to fill a very valuable role as a possession-style tight end here, but he's also going to be asked to stay in and block a ton. Whereas with Jonnu Smith, yes, he's going to block, but he's also going to be moved out across the formation a ton. They're going to do everything that they can to get the ball into his hands. I have very, very easily Jonnu Smith leading this entire team in targets, and I just can't see a path where Nelson Aguilar steps up as the target leader in this offense. I don't think it's Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne. Nope. Jacoby Myers. Nope. So it's Jonnu Smith here. And if that's the case, then he is absolutely going to drastically outproduce tight end 14 in ADP consensus.
Free tight end. That's why I keep going late.
Absolutely.
There's a couple tight ends on all of our lists here. I know mine, Yates for sure, that this is why we're okay with the late tight end. And one more note, too, the one thing that Yates didn't mention, I just want to chime in on, whether it's Cam Newton or Mac Jones, I think this is the one guy in the Patriots offense where his value, I don't think, changes. I don't think it's going to drastically differ. I think Cam Newton throwing to the tight end is actually something he's quite comfortable with. He's proven that in his career. And young quarterbacks typically want to check down and look for the tight end. Guess what? That's Mac Jones. So, I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. All right, before we get to my number 4, I want to tell you guys about Fantasy Boss, the next evolution in season-long fantasy sports. Fantasy plus crypto plus 3D smack talk. That's right. The first player-owned fantasy platform for us, by us. And if you like crypto, well, what better way to stay involved in your season-long leagues than being able to win the crypto of your choice in any given week? But beware, you'll need to beat the boss. So let's talk about the best part of fantasy, and that's smack talk. Fantasy Boss is making it bigger, better, and in 3D, baby. When a GIF or a meme just isn't good enough, let your digital double spread the joy of your dominance. Fantasy Boss wants to help you, in building something great. Soft launch this fall, limited spots available. Join and help us shape the product for a chance to beat the boss and win crypto. Be a boss and take your game to boss level. Sign up on the wait list to get notified when we launch this fall for your chance to win crypto. Just sign up at fantasyboss.com. Again, that's fantasyboss.com. All right, let's get to my number 4 on the list. And no surprise here, it's Gabriel Davis. That's right, wide receiver, 64, 162. Tags mentioned his little breakout. Well, that little breakout was something that these little eyes noticed, and I watched the Buffalo Bills quite a bit. And as the season went on, it was stunning to me in big spots. You know, when people finally did start to key in on Stephon Diggs in those big moments, Gabriel Davis was the guy who kept stepping up in those big moments. And I think that for a young player like that to have the confidence of his quarterback, I don't really care about all the other guys and all the other pieces, and I know there's other wide receivers there. I am quite aware. I don't see this team all of a sudden pivoting and running the football a ton and becoming very balanced, even if Zach Moss improves slightly year over year. It's still going to be a pass-heavy team and Josh Allen running the football. That's good news for Gabriel Davis. And there's also a scenario where Cole Beasley doesn't play this season. That's a reality that we have to start thinking about, talking about. And if so, guess who the biggest beneficiary is? It's Gabriel Davis, because there's more targets available. So for me, wide receiver 64, 162 overall. It's a great value. It's all upside. And I'll tell you what, in standard leagues, this guy's got a nose for the end zone. I like that about Gabriel Davis. Keep him on your radars. He's a great late round pickup. I've been getting him everywhere. Tags, who is number 3 on your list?
Continuing the trend with a wide receiver that, well, this one's going to lead his team in targets barring injury, and it's Corey Davis. Corey Davis going outside the top 120 picks is mind-blowing to me, especially, you know, what fantasy players tend to do is have a short memory. But for whatever reason with Corey Davis, they're refusing to have that short memory, and they're going back to what happened early in his career where he dealt with a multitude of injuries, had Marcus frickin' Mariota throwing him the football, then had some, again, he was dealing with injuries. He was playing with the first team after that, wasn't getting reps with Ryan Tannehill, and it showed. Once Ryan Tannehill took over the job, he favored A.J. Brown because those two were kind of working with the backups during training camp. And then you got a full off season with Ryan Tannehill with Corey Davis, and Corey Davis had a breakout season, finishes a top 30 wide receiver despite missing some time. Now he gets signed by the Jets to a big money contract with a new coaching staff, which says, hey, that's our dude. Like, we're going to go out there and get him the first day of free agency, and they did. Corey Davis paid a handsome amount of money as to be that go-to wide receiver for Zach Wilson. Now, again, I do like Elijah Moore, and some people are going to say, Mike, you have 2 Jets on your list. This is a terrible list.
I was going to be one of those people.
Yeah, no, I figured that. So Yates is more like my Twitter followers than I care to admit sometimes. But the thing is, we're not drafting last year's Jets. I told you guys last year, don't draft any Jets players. You don't want to be tied to Adam Gase. I didn't want Le'Veon Bell when he was with the Jets. I didn't care. Now it's a different regime. It's a different coaching staff. It's a different quarterback. Everything. The offensive line has been upgraded nonstop. This team is actually going to be good in the near future. I do believe that. And I think it starts this year, particularly with the offense, because there's just so much firepower that they've added to it. It's kind of hard not to. And again, Corey Davis, provided that he's healthy, he is seeing 100 plus targets. You do not find a guaranteed 100 plus targets outside the top 10 rounds in fantasy drafts.
You know what's stunning for me, Tags? I don't know if the memory is short term. I think it's selective. It's selective. They still want to remember that one great season of Josh Gordon and relive that for like a decade after. Do you see what I mean? It's more selective in this short term. Sometimes it's like it's not short term. Going back to the Jonnu Smith thing with Yates, it's like, did you not see what happened last year? Did you not notice what was going on in the field?
Right.
It's so oddly selective, dependent upon, I guess, maybe fandom. I guess maybe, you know, if you had that player and they burned you and you get, you know, hurt about it and you can't
a lot of
shake
time
it.
I'll tell you what, a lot of time it comes down to national TV bias, and I don't know if you guys know about that. Like I use that term a lot because I said when people see a player on like Monday Night Football, that's an opportunity to trade for a player or trade away a player because a lot of times like we take for granted that everybody sees every game like we do. They don't.
Right.
So they're basically looking at box scores. They don't know what's happening. But when they see it on national TV, seeing is believing to a lot of these people. And Corey Davis I haven't tracked his performance on primetime games, but I'm assuming maybe he's let down, and that's what led people to believe he's a sell high or something.
I don't think the Titans had a lot of primetime games in recent memory, to tell you the truth. Yeah. Like, that's just saying, putting that out there too. They're not like the Cowboys or, you know, the Patriots or the Steelers playing a lot of primetime anyway. Yates, who's your number 3 on your list of must-have late round guys?
Yeah, let's go with the quarterback position here. Let's go Trey Lance. And with Trey Lance, I think that the conversation obviously will immediately shift to, okay, well, when's he going to start? And I think that I'm saying grab Trey Lance on your roster regardless. If you have a deeper bench, if you're playing with 7, 8-man benches or whatever, then you can afford to take Trey Lance here and stash him on your bench as your QB2, because I do think that we're going to see him on the field sooner than later. And once he does hit the field, I think we could be talking about a potential top 10 fantasy quarterback right out of the gate. Like, you look at his situation, it is the best out of all the incoming rookie quarterbacks. And then pairing that with his rushing mobility and what he brings to the table from a, mobility perspective, he can easily end the season with 8, 9 rushing touchdowns. Like, that is in the realm of possibilities for Trey Lance in his rookie season. So I'm saying grab him onto your roster. You're going to have to wait, until we see him officially take over this job from Jimmy Garoppolo, but there's also a world where he comes out and starts week 1. So I think Trey Lance here, if we see him, once we see the preseason start, once we see him on the field, we see him with these receiving weapons, we're going to see his ADP skyrocket. So I'm just saying, if you can, get in before that happens.
Yates, I don't know if you agree with this statement or not, but I think the best situation would be if you miss out on all those elite quarterbacks and you take one of the standard pocket passer, Stafford, Brady kind of guys. Lance is that upside guy, right? That's kind of the mold of the quarterback. If you end up one of those guys, Lance is the one to take a shot on later, because you might have the upside of those top 5 in terms of athleticism. That might be a game changer, at least in the second half of the season.
Yeah, completely. And I'm not opposed to taking 2 quarterbacks this year, right? Especially if you're going to be throwing multiple darts in the later rounds, right? So I think with getting a guy like a Joe Burrow, if you're not completely comfortable with his health and the offensive line and whatever, or a Matthew Stafford, and then you compare that with a Trey Lance later on, just let him sit there on the bottom of your bench. I think that's a winning strategy.
All right, we've got 7 more guys to talk about, and don't forget to, when we're done, we're going to play a little game, a little what's trending, and take a look at what's really happening in the world. But before we do, I want to tell everybody about Manscaped. That's right, it's my favorite thing. I'm a big fan of the Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker, ear and nose hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver, the Ball Deodorant, the Crop Reviver. All of that can be yours. All you got to do is get the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped. It's available for you right now, and of course, the code is Yates. And if you're asking why, it's because all of these products have been inspired by Yates's grooming habits. You see him, sometimes he's very shy. He wears his head, the hat over his hair, but you could tell the beard's always tight, the hair is always tight. It's not an accident, okay? When it comes to male grooming, Yates is the standard bearer for that, and that's why that's the code that you want to go to manscaped.com, get your 20% off and free shipping. Again, it's got all that amazing stuff in this package. It's the Performance Package 4.0, and it includes the Lawnmower 4.0, which is the 4th generation trimmer. It's got the advanced skin safe technology. It's got the 4K LED light, the longest the battery life in the history of batteries. Sometimes also when Tags is working on his car, what he likes to do is he likes to hang the lawnmower with the light because it's got a long battery, and he's just working on the car, working on the engine, making that Mustang go. That's what you need. It's the versatility of all the Manscaped products. So once again, 20% off, free shipping. The code is Yates. Go to manscaped.com. Again, your balls will thank you. So, gentlemen, it's time for my number 3 here on the list. And looking around here, it's Darnell Mooney. And I love this Anthony Miller trade because this just makes me even happy. I don't have to hear about, Anthony Miller's still there and what's he going to look like. I don't have to worry about that anymore. He's in Houston. Darnell Mooney, to me, last year, fighting for the football, showing so much heart in big spots. There was awful, atrocious, no good quarterback play last year in Chicago. I know Andy Dalton isn't exactly Hall of Fame caliber, but Andy Dalton's been a very quality quarterback for a long time in the NFL. Capable quarterback play has eluded the Bears for a while. Andy Dalton is capable. And at some point in time, we might get Justin Fields. And if we do, who knows what this offense could evolve into. So for me, Darnell Mooney at 137, again, wide receiver 53 is a tremendous value. So far, there's 3 of my names are wide receivers, and that's just telling you the depth here. So if you do hit running back really early, take a shot on guys like Davis and Brown and Darnell Mooney. If even one of them hit and becomes a consistent option, I think you're going to be very happy. And I think Darnell Mooney has a lot of talent. He's got a lot of heart. He's got a lot of skill. And now he's got upgraded quarterback play in an offense that I think is going to be much improved year over year. I know it's tough to talk about the Bears with the guys getting excited because long-suffering and Bears fan does go hand in hand. But still, I want to have a little bit of optimism. I want to pump you guys up a little bit. Let's pump you up, Tags, for number 2 on your list. Who you got?
Oh, number 2, I am going to talk to you about a player that you can get with your final draft pick. And I'm talking about even if you do in like 18 rounds, 20 rounds, like he's going outside the top 300 players right now, and it makes absolutely zero sense because he's another guy that absolutely has the potential to lead his team in targets. And in fact, this wide receiver, despite being in a pretty bad situation last year, from week 7 through week 17, that's a pretty big sample size. It's over half the season. Finished as the wide receiver 24 during that time, despite catching 0 touchdowns. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Jacoby Myers.
I knew it.
Jacoby Myers is tremendous value in fantasy drafts right now. We've seen over the years countless wide receivers walk into New England and then us expect big things, expect them to turn into something. And they trade for Mohamed Sanu and they draft N'Keal Harry. And this goes back beyond recent memory too, where players just come in there and some just don't produce. They just don't catch on, whatever the case may be. Jacoby Myers has shown you, I can produce in this offense. It's very likely that he's just the new Danny Amendola, who was the new Wes Welker, and then it was Julian Edelman. There's always been that go-to receiver that can move around the formation, the guy that they line up in the slot quite a bit. Jacoby Myers is going to be that guy. Nelson Aguilar was signed, sure. Kendrick Bourne, sure. They had money to spend in free agency. They have to spend a certain amount of money out there to do that. Now, would it help if we went to Mac Jones over Cam Newton? I think so, because I believe the offense is going to throw more. But at the same time, again, this was with Cam Newton as his quarterback last year, was the wide receiver 24 from week 7 through 17. So even if Cam Newton, he can't be worse than he was last year. But if he is a little bit better, let's say he improves a little bit, that's better for Jacoby Myers. And again, he has proven the ability to perform in this offense. So getting him with one of your final picks, it's just like, okay, I just feel like it's a free pick.
Can go all the way back to the Troy Brown days and see where it all started there too. I mean, that role in that offense goes back a very long way, 20 plus years now, and Myers certainly had some moments there. So number 2 for you, Yates, who you got on your board?
Yeah, let's stay in New England. Let's go Cam Newton here. And I understand that a lot of people are going to be talking about Cam Newton, and they're saying, well, they drafted a first-round quarterback, and they've got Mac Jones waiting, and Mac Jones can start week 1. No, he's not. Like, Cam Newton is going to get the starting opportunity here in this offense until the wheels fall off, if that even happens. So now with Cam Newton, with last year, 8 passing touchdowns, 10 interceptions. It was not great. Don't get me wrong. Like, from a passing perspective,
it was bad.
It was real bad. But with all of that being said, Cam Newton was still a very, very relevant fantasy option because of what he can do with his legs. 42 red zone rush attempts last year was the most for any quarterback in NFL history. And now he's going at QB 30 in ADP consensus. Meanwhile, from a stats perspective, I just put this out yesterday on my Instagram. From a stats perspective, there's an argument to be made, like very similar things here with Jalen Hurts, as far as what they can both do from a fantasy perspective. And Jalen Hurts is being drafted right now as QB 9 off the board. So with Cam Newton, what I can do here is, if you're in a 14-team league, a 16-team league, I can wait on quarterback until my absolute last pick. I can plug in Cam Newton, I can draft him, and I've got a streaming quarterback here for the first part of the year that I know that he has a revamped receiving core. He's got guys like Jonnu Smith. Jacoby Myers maybe takes a massive step forward. You've got Hunter Henry here. You've got Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. There are talented options here now around Cam Newton, which he did not have last year. So now everything is kind of pointing up, and Cam Newton's ADP is falling because of it. I don't know. With Cam Newton, I can plug him in it as my streaming quarterback to start the year. If he does get replaced, that's fine. I can move on from him, and then I can pick up another quarterback off waivers. But if he does take a massive step forward again because of all the situation now around him improving, and then I've got a steal at quarterback here, because Cam Newton, before he missed time with COVID last year, he was the QB7 in all of fantasy football, and this was coming into an offense that had no receiving weapons. He came in super late. All this going together for me to just say Cam Newton right now, QB 30 is absolutely ridiculous. I'll be drafting him as my streaming quarterback, and then once if he does get replaced, no problem. I just move on from him because I know that he's going to give me value because of what he does as a runner in the red zone.
I only have one thing in response to say to that, and that is, Mac Jones could start week 1, Yates. I just want you to know. Oh, and look, you and I are friends about Jonnu Smith, but we are not friends on the Cam Newton thing. Nope, not going to be there. But so we're broken up now for at least the next pick. We'll see how that goes. My number 2, it's really close to that 129, but I just want to kind of get everybody to take advantage of the value while it's there. Because at 129 overall, wide receiver 51, Jalen Waddle's out there. Now, I am not in love necessarily with the Dolphins' passing game. I'm not in love with the offensive line. And I think Tua still has a long way to go. But Jalen Waddle missed some time last year in college. If he had played more, I think we'd be talking a little bit more about Jalen Waddle because the talent level is for real here. The opportunity is for real. Tags has told you guys many times on the podcast, so I'm just going to reiterate and regurgitate what he said, which is basically this guy's going to be the guy in the slot. He's going to be the go-to. He's going to be the guy that's going to be the difference maker. And yeah, Will Fuller's there, and yeah, Devontae Parker's there, but I want the guy who's going to be the volume guy who's got playmaking ability. And you could circle both of those things when it comes to Jalen Waddle because he's got both of them. And I think real quick, people are going to realize this. And if they start to see it in preseason games, you can kiss that 129 overall goodbye. It is going to crack the top 100. I'm telling you right now, he's one of the better values. I've been drafting him on every team as a late wide receiver I'm getting from my bench. And I think he's got wide receiver, high end 3, maybe even, middle 2 upside potential. I know that's a lot to put on him, but again, that's potential. In terms of what's the floor? Well, the floor for this player, I think, is a pretty good wide receiver 3 that you feel pretty good about playing most weeks because I do think the volume's going to be there enough for him. And I can't stress this enough. The playmaking ability of Jalen Waddle is for real, and it's something that this team kind of lacked a little bit last year, and he brings in full force. So Jalen Waddle is my number 2, which brings us to the number 1. Tags, who is your number 1 must-have late-round pick post 120 ADP?
I mean, if anybody's listened to this podcast for the last few months, they don't need me to go into detail on this one. It's Mike Williams.
Great, let's go to Yates. Yates, who's your number 1? Go ahead, Tags.
This is every year I'll find a guy that I'll stand by in these double-digit rounds that you could find, and it was Devontae Parker in 2019, it was Corey Davis in 2020, and it's Mike Williams in 2021. I'm all in. I've talked about it. You guys are sick of hearing me talk about Mike Williams. So just draft Mike Williams and profit. That's all.
You know what? I'm not sick of it. Not yet, anyway. I mean, it's only July, but still, maybe in August.
Give me a week. Give me a week,
maybe 2 more. I'm sick of it. But
what 3 months wasn't enough for you?
No, because honestly, I kind of needed it as a Mike Williams fan annually, who's been frustrated by having Mike Williams on my teams and seeing the potential and seeing all that upside and drafting him going, this guy's going to break out this year. This is going to be the year. And it never quite happens because of the health. Dude, I kind of needed you to say it over and over. And because you've said it over and over, I'm getting a lot of benches that look like Jalen Waddle, Mike Williams, Gabriel Davis, a lot of these guys that we're kind of talking about on the show. And I want to try to drive this home for everybody. Running back goes and falls off a cliff this year. And if you don't address it early, it's a problem. If you do address it early, you're going to miss on some of those elite level wide receivers. But there's all these guys that we're talking about that if you just hit on 1 or 2, they can really make a difference maker. And that makes you a championship caliber roster in fantasy. So even though Tags isn't going to expound anymore about Mike Williams, I mean, it's true though. The touchdown upside's there, the rolling offense is there, the quarterback is there now, the arm of that quarterback is there now. There's so many things to like, Tags.
There are a ton of things to like, and really it comes back to what are you searching for in this area of the draft? Are you looking for a guy that you could play during bye weeks? No. I'm looking for a guy in Mike Williams that has flashed 1,000-yard upside, that has flashed 10 touchdown upside in the NFL. This is not something I'm making up because of his numbers at Clemson. He has what might be the best quarterback of his career because, again, he was tied to Phillip Rivers towards the end of his career. Mm-hmm. People talk about injuries. They talk about this. The reason I don't like to talk about running backs in these shows is because it's a crapshoot. So, therefore, all of us could throw out 5 running back handcuffs. And basically, if a player gets injured, we're going to look like the smartest people ever. These players don't need injuries in order to make a difference on your fantasy team. Mike Williams, this is my statement. Mike Williams will finish as a top 30 fantasy wide receiver this year as long as he plays 14 games. If he plays at least 14 games, I'm counting him in for top 30 wide receiver production. And again, people want to talk about his injuries. How about the fact that Keenan Allen has missed time over the course of his career? If Keenan Allen were to miss some time, they're already saying, Joe Lombardi's already said Mike Williams is playing the X receiver in this role, and if you're a betting man, I would put a lot of money on him seeing a lot of targets this year. I actually believe there's truth to that. There's not a whole lot of targets in this offense outside of Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. And again, you have a young quarterback. Let's go. Mike Williams.
All right. And yes, there's not one running back on any of our 3 lists, just for notice for everybody.
Right, we could say that, and then an injury happens, and it's like, oh, we're the smartest people.
Darrington Evans isn't. I mean, I'm not going to talk about him because that is a
it requires an injury to make you look smart.
Right, 100%.
Get your workhorse running backs, attack the wide receivers late.
All right, Yates, you are up with your number 1, and then I'll wrap things up here, and we'll move on to what's trending. What's your number 1, or should I say, who is your number 1 late round must have?
Yeah, and this comes with a disclaimer first saying that this is obviously going to rise with the news from Michael Thomas missing the first part of the year. But Tre'Quan Smith at 298 overall, wide receiver 95. This was someone who I was in on to begin with, because looking at the opportunity in this offense, it's like, okay, well, someone else needs to step up. I put out a video just a little while ago on the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel calling Tre'Quan Smith a breakout this year, because there are plenty of targets that are up for grabs in this offense, and now that becomes even better. So I think with Tre'Quan, burn's not the right word, because he really has not had the opportunity to truly break out, but he's been hyped up over the past couple years, and it hasn't come to fruition yet. And I think that the ADP, because of that, is going to stay down here with Tre'Quan Smith. So I think that he's still going to stay in this threshold outside of the top 120 overall. And I think that we're going to be drafting Tre'Quan Smith. Like Tag said at the beginning, if you can get him as your wide receiver 5, then that's a spot that I feel really, really comfortable in, because I do think that we're going to see some really good things here from him in 2021. So Tre'Quan Smith here.
You guys Trautman should be put on this list as well. If you can get Trautman outside the top 120, I think he's a good late round target too.
I was going to include him, but I already had Tyler Higbee and Jonnu Smith as tight ends, so I was like, this is just my must-have tight ends.
Well, I'll add to that list. How about with one of my must-have tight ends, and that's Blake Jarwin, tight end 19 overall. 19? Yep. Bro. I mean, come on. Let's be honest here. I understand that there's 3 great wide receivers. I understand Zeke is there. But if you watch the Cowboys, you've known in the past, Dak Prescott likes to find that tight end, because everybody is dropping back and trying to guard all these wide receivers, and it's hard to guard all those guys. It just is. And then you have to worry about Ezekiel Elliott too. And what's wide open? Over the middle. And if you're able to stop or slow down CeeDee Lamb or whoever's playing in the slot that day, okay, maybe that's fine. But there's still going to be opportunity for Blake Jarwin to have big catches and big moments and some yards after the catch as well. There's touchdown upside there. You know, historically, you go back and you look 2 years ago at the vacated targets for the Dallas Cowboys at the tight end position. It was well over 100. So there's no reason to think that it can't be close to that number again. And Dalton Schultz, who nobody knew last year, came in and basically finished a few points behind Hayden Hurst. Okay? So if you think that Blake Jarwin can't come back and do that, at least that, I think you're crazy. Once again, free tight ends, baby. We're giving you free tight ends. Higbee, Trautman, Jonnu Smith, Blake Jarwin. Did I forget somebody? I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. There's so many options there to take, again, 1 or 2 of these guys. Cole Kmet's another one I like. The guys don't as much, but that's okay. I'll be on that island. But here's the point we're making is, if you don't get those guys at the top spot, it is really difficult for me in my drafts, guys, when I keep looking and making my selections, to pass on running back depth and wide receiver depth to take mid-level tight ends. I would much rather take 2 of the guys that we're talking about and hope that I'm right on 1. And if I'm right on 2, then I just got myself some trade capital, and that works for me. Your thoughts about the late tight end, because it's feeling more and more like an appealing strategy to me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with you, when you can take a Kyle Pitts as the 4th tight end off the board in the 4th or 5th round, or a Mark Andrews in that same range, Dallas Goedert, but that's assuming that Zach Ertz is not going to be in town. Like those guys, I'll pass. Yeah. I'll take a proven running back or a proven wide receiver at that spot, and then I'll double back and I'll double down on these tight ends here later on.
Yeah, it's just starting to feel more and more like if it's like Kelsey or bust for me. I like Waller too. I know you're a big Kittle guy, Tags, but it's just, have you found yourself getting a lot of the higher end tight ends in your drafts and in your mocks here, Tags?
It just depends on where I'm at in the draft, to be honest with you. Kittle, I'll take towards the end of the 2nd round, but I took him last night in a draft. It was a tight end premium. I took him in the top of the 2nd round. So I do have Kittle as my tight end too over Waller. Just believe that there's going to be some more competition for Waller and targets this year with John Brown. Ruggs better get some more targets. Bryan Edwards, there's just, I can't see Waller getting up to the extreme levels he did last year, but Kittle, the ceiling is right there with Travis Kelce. Like, he's already flashed it. In his 2nd or 3rd season in the NFL, the dude set the record for yardage for tight ends, and now he might get an upgraded quarterback.
And he's done that with only like 5 or 6 receiving touchdowns every single year. Like, if that number can go up, then goodness gracious.
Yeah.
All right, it's time to put the work aside. We did a lot of work, and now it's time to have some fun. Let's take a look at what's going on, what's happening, what's trending. And let's start with Ted Lasso, back for season 2. Everybody's very excited. I didn't see the season 1. I heard nothing but good things. It's about a coach who has gone now to England, I believe, to become a soccer coach. Everybody loves the Ted Lasso. So I'm going to ask you guys, what team will get a new head coach in the NFL in 2021 first? Who is first out of a job in 2021 NFL head coach wise? I'm going to say it's unfortunate, but I think it's the Bengals head coach Taylor. I think he's going to be out, and I think Joe Brady's going to be in next year. That's just the logical movement of these pieces, in my opinion. But Tags, you have a different approach.
I love how Joe like sets it up for me, and he's like, "I'm going to ask you this question." Then he goes, "I'm going to take your guy before you can say."
I didn't take your guy. I try to give you guys time to think because I'm throwing these on you.
Thank you.
And then the worst part
because I needed a minute.
And the worst part is, I'll ask you a question. Like last week, I asked you a question about we were doing the dad stuff, and you're like,
that was one that like I have to walk through my day. This is football. This is a football question.
Football question, Tags. So you're with me. So what you really want to say is, Joe, you're so smart. I agree 100%. Good job.
You're so dumb, and I love you.
I'll also accept that as an answer. Yates, you got somebody else there? I mean, I don't know what the over/under on weeks for the Texans head coach is, but it's
yeah. I mean, all of the teams that you can look at and you'd be like, oh, those are pretty bad situations. They're gotten new head coaches, so it's not like they're going to be immediately relieved. I'll throw it out there. I'll go John Gruden.
Oh, wow. Wow. Ooh, that would be something. He's a grinder. You got to love him. All right, anyway. What's also trending is the teaser trailer for the new season of Dexter. So
yes!
That dropped. Everybody's favorite murderer. So, Yates, what fantasy player is going to kill the dreams of a lot of teams this season? Who's going to disappoint? Who's going to be an utter failure bust? And is really just going to be a terrible pick at the end of the day and just kill your fantasy team?
Oh my word, dude! You need to give me a minute.
More important. I was about to say, more importantly, Joe, who's your pick? Because I know you're gonna steal my guy.
I'm not giving you time.
All right, I'm gonna skip Yates here because. Yeah. All right, so it's a football question. I'm ready. It's Aaron Rodgers.
Oh my word! Shut
Aaron
up.
Rodgers, because if Aaron Rodgers does not show up to the Packers, it destroys the value of him, destroys the value of Devontae Adams, it destroys the value of Aaron Jones, it destroys everything and everyone.
Wow, that was pretty Thanos gauntlet of
that
you.
Was,
well done. I can't even ignore
wow,
it.
that got dark real quick. That escalated quickly.
Yeah, wow. I just felt like I watched an episode of Dexter. Yates, do you have one that you'd like to throw in there?
I'll say like it'll impact someone else, but that's Zach Ertz for Dallas Goedert. People are so hyped up about Dallas Goedert, and I think that Zach Ertz isn't going anywhere yet. So I think that we're gonna have to wait a little bit more for Dallas Goedert.
That's a very interesting one. I'm gonna say it's Cam Newton. He's gonna crush you because you're gonna try to pick out the one or two good things that he did because he ran the football a lot and he was used every single time.
You guys picked two guys that aren't being drafted.
Yeah, well, Cam Newton's being drafted in Superflex. You know, I play a lot of Superflex, so he is getting drafted. I think he's going to be a waste of a pick. But I guess it's not going to kill you. You're right. I mean, you threw that Aaron Rodgers gauntlet down so hard, I'm actually I just want to walk away from it. All right, this was a trending question on Twitter. This was getting a lot of traction. It was, you're stuck on a long flight. Which musician would you like to sit next to for the duration of that flight? And hopefully they'll talk to you. Do you want me to go first here, Tags, or do you have time? I mean, you're
not going to take my guy in this one, so you can go ahead.
I mean, well, I'm curious because you've met some, musicians in your life too. I know you're a cool guy. You hang out with, backstage with everybody. But is there somebody you want to share the flight with? Maybe somebody new that you haven't talked to or met?
No, I'll still sit with Jonathan Davis from Corn.
I knew you were good.
No. I mean, I have met him, and he's just a cool dude. Like, he's not into sports, but he's into like everything else and really into music. I love music, and usually when I'm outside of football territory, I try and do something that just takes my mind away from me a little bit. So we talk about anything and anything not football.
I actually did watch that Woodstock '99 documentary this weekend that HBO had. That was fascinating and disturbing, and he was on it. He had a lot of interesting things to say, which was cool. Yates, how about for you? Is there a musician you want to sit next to and hang out with, pick their brain, talk music or not?
Yeah, there are not a whole lot of people that are going to know who this is, but Alan Stone is someone whose music I love, and he just seems like one of the most like interesting people on the planet. So I would love to be able to sit down and talk music with him because that is something that I can, keep up with. So I'll go Alan Stone.
I'm going to go Dave Grohl. He's my guy. I just want to hang out with Dave Grohl. He just seems like the coolest. And I just want to hear him tell stories because he's got a million stories about like the craziest, weirdest things because he's played music with everybody and he's been all over. And he's been in the biggest band in the world and he's been in the Foo Fighters, which is one of the biggest bands in the world now. And that's an incredible journey. And it just seems like a cool guy. Just talk about a lot of stuff, and especially other people's music. Like I feel like you would talk about that. And number two would be, I think clearly Shakira. And you would say, Joe, why do you want to sit with Shakira? And I'd say, hold on. It's because I know
you're the same person.
No,
you're the same person.
I say because, well,
Joe's hips don't lie.
My hips don't lie. it's a 6-hour flight. I know she's married and all that, but we know most marriages end in divorce. Half of them do. And I think it's a unique opportunity for the two of us just to chat, get to know each other, maybe swap recipes or something, or talk
Shoot your shot,
football.
Joe. Shoot your shot.
Right, exactly. Friendships are the beginning of great relationships. That's what I'm saying. Maybe we just hang out and talk about music, talk about sport. I don't know. We'll just hang out. Next thing you know, we leave the flight, we exchange numbers, and we see where it goes from there. I'm just saying, stranger things have happened. So I hope you
Shakira.
That's right. I mean, come on. I mean, there's 2 right answers, and I just gave both of them. So all right, I want to thank all the sponsors of today's show. Obviously, Pristine Auction. Again, go to pristineauction.com. That's PRISTINE auction.com. And you get $5 free credit on us. And don't forget, too, they're the ones giving away that jersey, CMC autographed jersey. You only got a couple days left to get it. FantasyPros.com/contest to get all the info on that. Also, don't forget about some of our other sponsors of today's show, including Fantasy Boss. That's right, something new, something cool. Sign up at FantasyBoss.com. It's crypto, it's fantasy, it's fun. Get after it and go do that. And while you're at it, don't forget to use that code Yates, Manscaped.com. They've got all the packages you need, the Lawnmower 4.0, the packages for your package, the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped. It's got it all, 20% off free shipping with that code Yates. And that'll do it for us. We got a mock draft again coming up tomorrow. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. That way you know exactly when we're starting. In case you forget, we know you're busy, but we know you want to join us for all the hilarity and all the football talk that's going to take place tomorrow. Again, it's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget about it. You don't have to remember if you just subscribe to Fantasy Pros YouTube and click that notifications button. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Tags and Yates, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.